for today is celebrated conceptual artist Diwan Manna, former chairperson Chandigarh Dalit Kala Academy, president Punjab Lalit Kala Academy, director Trinale India. He's back to where he belongs, photography, with his latest works, City Tales, which once again reflect on how a photograph is not only equal to 1,000 words, but 1,000 tales. Thank you, Diwan, for talking to us.
Thank you, Nonika, for sparing your time to interview me.
Now, with City Tales, can we say safely that Diwan, the artist, has returned with full gusto and enthusiasm?
Yes, that's true, but to use the word back is, I don't think that appropriate. In a way, it's appropriate, but since I was not really practicing art as I used to do, say, 15 years ago before coming into the role of either president, chairperson, this and that, and in which I kind of focused all my energies into organizational activities, bringing the best of the art to the city, the best of the minds in the world of art to the city, so that we could create a kind of a knowledge pool for the city people. People could get exposure to the best of art which is available in the entire world. But in my mind, the artist was always active. Always there, but it so happened I didn't have the time to kind of practice what was going in the mind.
So once an artist, always an artist. That's true.
True.
Though you were busy showcasing the best of artists for City Beautiful, somewhere the artist in you was also churning. It was not hibernating.
No, because see, when you're sitting with those people who are very specially gifted, talented people, and they have something to kind of comment upon or have a new idea, a fresh idea in their mind, when you're sitting with them, amongst them, that of course triggers your own creativity and the thinking process. So it is just both ways. Like while you're organizing, you are giving something to the people or the art lovers, but at the same time, you're also gaining a lot.
Your latest body of work, City Tales, how did it come about? I believe it's an exhibition of, not an exhibition, but works of cities from Punjab and Europe as well. How did it really come about?
See, the mind is always on job. It's for working. When you are an artist, you are looking at things, you're observing life as such. When you're observing, then the visuals keep forming, the images keep forming in your mind. It's only that you're not clicking them actually. So that was going on continuously and constantly. But recently, when I got a little free from these responsibilities, I was going to attend the Bhog ceremony of Patar Sahib, the Radhe which I some of us together sat in at Dhaba. So then I took some pictures over there, then went to another, unfortunately, folk ceremony of a friend's father, and there I saw like people indulging in mobile phone while attending the folk, and like a little child, well, maybe 4-year-old or 3-year-old, her mother and her father, 3 of them all on the phone. That triggered my kind of creative process of the journey, as you say, again. And then I was traveling into various sectors of the city, and there I clicked pictures with the mobile phone. And most of these pictures which I have been putting up on Instagram and Facebook are from mobile phone. But while clicking pictures on mobile phone, I also click pictures on the real camera, the professional camera also. So mobile phone gives you the facility of instantaneously sharing it with the people. And I do the editing on the phone also. That's how it began.
City Tales also has photographs from European cities, correct?
Yes.
So how is city life different in India and abroad, especially in Europe, which is mostly seen as a relatively less crowded place?
Both ways. See, India is a multi-ethnic, multi-racial, multi-religious. There's so many things happening at the same time in India. India is a little more noisy. All aspects noisy, not only the sound noise, but also the noise of so many objects, so many elements all the time happening around. And Europe when you go to a touristy place, that is also equally crowded. So the difference between them is there all the activities are more organized. Over here, everything is chaotic, but within the chaos, there is some kind of an organization because of which life keeps happening.
But you often talk about how a good photograph or a good photographer makes a photograph and doesn't take a photograph. So, but when you are capturing city life, how do you make that distinction? How do you then make a photograph instead of taking one?
This comes from your experience, number one, and the experience is the accumulation of all the knowledge you have acquired. The knowledge doesn't mean only reading books. Knowledge is living life, observing others' life, having known about history, having known about culture, having known about ethnicities, various cultural groups, and various other political, religious, social factors. If you are constantly engaging with all these activities, your mind is active and you keep looking at what is it that you want to show. So it's not that each and everything which comes on my way, I click it, It's basically what is already going on in mind, this aspect of life I do want to portray through my photographs. So when you say that I'm making a picture, this is when every element comes together. The movement of the body, the things happening in the background, things happening in the foreground, the rhythm of the body, the rhythm of the lines in the buildings or the roads, textures, colors, and gestures, when everything combines together, and that you think is actually putting across an idea which you have in mind, whether it's about rickshawalas, or auto pullers, or sweepers, or dhabawalas, or a chai maker on the street, or a brady puller. So you try to make a comment on the society we are living in. So if it's not simply somebody sitting, somebody pulling a rickshaw that you are able to make a comment. It's just a chance that you are there at the same time. You are actually using that given situation to your advantage, but then all those things which are constantly going on in your mind about that social setup and about how these people are marginalized, how the middle class or the upper class is not looking down upon them, and how they find a place within the city, within the whole big spectrum of life. They also find a space, and that space is very dignified in a way, very, very, in a way justified, and they find happiness within that. So when those things come together, then you can say, okay, that's the picture that I have made. Actually, it's very pompous to say I have made. It's all, his blessings. Sometimes you are blessed, sometimes you're not. So nothing comes from your efforts. It's all accumulation of your friends, your efforts, all things combined together, and then ऊपर वाले ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੇਰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਜੋ ਬਰਸਾਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਖੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਬਰਸਾਉਂਦਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਕੱਠਾ ਹੋ ਜੇ then we are able to click it.
But talking of people on the margins, we all see them and unsee them. I'm sure you also must be in regular life, you see them and also unsee them. But what happens when you see them through the lens of the camera? What is it that your third eye of the camera enables you to see?
Actually, see, the camera comes later. Your own real eye is constantly looking at them. You're observing them. You're observing how they integrate in the society and how they make two ends meet. And within that limited space and resources, they live a life and they find happiness. They have sorrows, but at the same time, they are living. And we also engage with them. And in our society, there are so many different layers and steps. And if you're observing, then camera happens to be just a tool. It's only that at that time you have the camera, but those images are constantly forming at the back of your mind.
There is astounding beauty in these photographs of these very ordinary people. How are you able to imbue that in your photographs?
if you look at life with compassion, with empathy, with respect, with love and care, if you look at people, if you judge them by their class, by their clothes they are wearing, or by the religion they come from or the caste they come from, then you are never able to kind of find that beauty. If you respect them as human beings or treat them as human beings, you feel they are equal, then only you can find that beauty in that. You know? Then you don't have to make any effort. The effort is within you if you are made that way, that you find everybody as a human being. You know? Then it automatically happens. Your attitude or aptitude reflects in your work, in your thinking, then in your work.
Also, long back you also said that there is, people confuse subject with the object, especially the viewer doesn't know that object is not the subject. Now, in context of your latest works, one particular work is about Nek Chand's rock carton, where you have taken a picture of the iconic sculptures that he made. Can you explain in this context? Because here, as a layman, even I would like to know what is the subject and what is the object here in this particular work.
This work is normally a sculpture. You're basically taking the picture of a sculpture. But what kind of a sculpture it is? That sculpture is made from junk or the waste material. And that sculpture is also a folk kind of a piece of art. Which in that picture there is I think if I remember correctly, it's a female body, and all the white, broken, I think, crockery items are pasted in that. To me, and to the discerning eye, the white color, the broken pieces of crockery, they reflect the mind of the artist, Nek Chand, that he was making a comment on probably women, their lives. That's how you interpret. Art is always open to interpretation. So then it doesn't really remain an object. It becomes a subject. That sculpture, which is a piece of art, becomes very humane. Then it takes you further into the lanes, bylanes of your experiences. You have heard stories from your grandmothers or your mother, how women were treated earlier, how women are still treated, and you keep reading stories, and so those broken pieces of crockery reflect the broken heart, broken promises, of the broken promises of giving them liberty, equality, and all that. It can reflect that.
I didn't see it like that. That's
it
well
can
put.
be. Somebody else can
That's well put. Yes. And City of Tales also has a lot of trees of the city.
Yeah.
I believe they are of the city.
Yeah.
So how did that become a recurring? It's almost like a recurring leitmotif.
In the sense because you have now very swanky showrooms all around. But how a tree helps engage with the life, and tree becomes the focal thing, the pillar around which life moves. There is a chai wala sitting under that. There is a rickshaw wala parked, and by the side there is a juice seller, and there would be motorcycles, rickshaws, or auto wala parked, and everything converges around that tree. And Chandigarh has some of the oldest trees, very old trees, and they are very well taken care of in a way. And so the tree as a life giver to those people who do not have any other shelter. They cannot afford to have a big showroom, but without the showroom they are able to serve you and serve those who cannot afford to go to those showrooms. A chai cup, 10 rupees, or a samosa or a parantha or something, and they enjoy it. And in fact, probably they enjoy it more because they are in the open. They're open. They enjoy the sun, they enjoy the fresh air, they enjoy rain or whatever. Sometimes can be a bit difficult, but still, how they manage. So that kind of respectability with which life goes around within a city which is supposed to be the most beautiful, most well-planned, organized city, and without actually hampering with any other activity. Also, India is a very populated city, we all know, country, and there is hardly any space for people. People are jostling for space. But how these people accommodate each other? You know? But nobody is fighting with anybody, nobody is quarreling with anybody. Uske saath dusra chai wala aa gaya, mochi will be by the side, you know, or some cigarette seller will be the side. And even auto rickshaws are also parked there. So everybody within the limited space is, then the space is here. If you have space in your heart, then you can accommodate whatever you want to. So that also I want to show to the people.
And also the design of the trees, the patterns, they acquire a life of their own.
Yeah, true. That's true. And sometimes I show merely a tree. It's difficult. It's not good, correct to say merely a tree, but a tree tells a story.
Yes.
You know, trees, branches, or trees, trunk, or the various shapes and forms and textures. They themselves tell a story. You can read into that story. Or I remember one tree. These are only leaves and leaves and leaves. You know, and that if you look at that, you forget everything else around you. You are able to, in a way, meditate, concentrate, and in awe of the beauty of nature, in awe of what God has given us. Nature helps you meditate. Nature helps you take you away from all your worries. So that's how trees become important in my images.
You're telling very fascinating tales about how you see life in this so-called urban, sophisticated city. But outside India, if you can give any example of something that also connected you to humanity, like in a similar fashion.
Yeah, there I get fascinated because I don't mostly like to go to places where there are no people. So in my pictures, most of the times you'll find humans are there. Humans in context with everything else the human beings have created for themselves. Roads, big malls, streets, street lights or benches or other elements. Somebody is moving like that. Another person is going like that in Barcelona. And that there is a person, homeless person, sitting on the street but reading a book. And there are people around him. There is a kind of a chauraha, crossing. Somebody is going that way, other person is going this way, one person is going. Nobody is paying any attention to that person. But there is a rhythm in their walk. There is a rhythm, the way their clothes are falling, the way this person is sitting, the way the streets are crisscrossing, the way the buildings, their lines are going this way, that way. And it moves like that. Life, nature, buildings, material, concrete, city life. So this is how I look at it. When I go to, for instance, museums, there it becomes very fascinating for me how people relate to artworks and how artworks come to life when people are engaged with them. And their gestures, their reactions, and sometimes it happens that a sculpture looks like a person who's sitting there looks like a sculpture. Role reversal. So how museum space becomes alive with the viewer. So that also becomes a kind of a very interesting subject for me.
But that happens mostly in museums across the world, or have you seen that happening in India too?
India too depends how big or nicely organized, curated exhibition or museum that is. But life happens everywhere. Because life is life. It goes with its own rhythm. Nobody kind of dictates it or has a control over it. So here the life is different because our clothes in a way are different. The way we stand, the way we move, the way we walk is different. The walk style of Europe is different. Most of the people walk a little faster, and here it's a ding dong kind of a walk. People are leisurely in their walk or attitude towards life. So that also happens. That's a constant engagement. You're looking at them, and you're looking at the elements around them. Then you're taking a picture. So Europe, of course, is a bit different than India, but your mind is constantly, shuffling between India and abroad. When you're abroad, you sometimes the images are coming from India. Your mind works like an Indian. So when you're in India, your mind sometimes works like a European because you've been going to Europe and West for a long time. So human beings are, which we change wherever we go. We learn, we acquire.
You also do photography in color. I still remember your first, not first, but the first time I really saw your works, Violence, in which your images were totally surreal. And now in black and white, you've created a visual wonder. So how do you decide that whether it's going to be black and white or color? At what point?
The picture tells itself. Picture tells. The image tells. The situation tells you. I click all the pictures in color. Earlier, when like we used to have black and white films, that time I used to click in black and white as well as in color and also in transparency. But nowadays, with the digital cameras, things have become easier. So I click all the pictures in color, but then convert into black and white. So which picture has to go for black and white and which picture has to stay in. Normally with life, late, recently, I'm not showing color. Like when I click pictures in Banaras, for instance, they are all in color, most of them. There's so much of color. But now this series is mostly in black and white. Those pictures which were like conceptual artworks, that is in color, and that color also have played a lot with the color. They are not usual colors.
Yes.
So that also because having been trained in College of Art into painting and printmaking, so being a student of, in a way, untrained student of cinema, so those concepts were forming not only in terms of shapes and forms, but also in terms of colors. So how a color can communicate a particular kind of emotion or a feeling, that you have to decide as an artist. So that's how I decide whether this feeling is better communicated through color or what kind of color, and whether in black and white. In black and white also you can have many shades.
Yeah, exactly.
It can be a softer picture in which there is very less contrast. It can be a very high contrast picture. The blacks can be very black, whites can be very white, and sometimes everything becomes very gloomy and very blackish. So the mood of the picture you change in the editing. Sometimes in clicking also, but mostly in editing.
Yeah, I was going to just say that one can see thousands of colors. I know the gradation of colors in your black and white photographs.
Yeah, that has to be there because black and white as such helps any artist or a photographer in terms of accentuating
the essence.
Essence, because every human being is trained to look at pictures or anything in color. So when you take the color away, it leads the person to a direction where you want to lead the person. And then it leaves like when you're reading a book or you seeing a film made on that book. So then not much is left to your imagination. But when you are reading a book, everything is in your imagination. You create those scenes. You imagine the characters. You imagine their language. You imagine the music. Of course, it's the writer who's leading to that, but he is or she is helping you to go into that world with your own imagination. So similarly, in black and white, we lead the person to their own lived experiences, because each one of us looks at artworks or any image from their own personal experience. Whatever you have learned throughout the life, whatever you've seen, whatever your knowledge base is, so you interpret artworks accordingly. You respond to them accordingly.
Since you just said that you are an untrained student of cinema, and you also often say that you are not just a photographer, but you are a director of photography. So how a term we definitely associate with cinema, a director of photography. So how can you be a director in still images? Of course, you've shown it to us many times, but if you can also share it with the viewers.
It's basically if you have a concept in mind and you gather a few elements together, and human beings, actors, you call them actors or models or whatever, and so you want to communicate an idea to the audience, and the idea has to be communicated in a particular way. So each element is defining a particular meaning and their relationship between the element and the human figure. So when you are placing those elements where you want the person to gesticulate or emote in a particular manner, and you want to paint their bodies, which I used to do. So those kind of things, if you're doing, that's direction. On the street, you can't. The life keeps moving on. You have to record it the way it is going. If you're directing people, then you can if you want to, but then it's not street photography. Street photography is as life is happening on the street. You are clicking it.
Candid.
Your contribution is how effectively you can become invisible to your subject. Because in street photography, I've seen it with Raghu Rai, long time back. I've seen him going that up close to a subject and people are not aware of his being there. And when I used to go, they used to become aware. But of late now, I am somehow, maybe with age or with experience, or I have now experienced that in the last, say, about 7, 8, 9 months, I have also become invisible to my subjects. People are like not really noticing me in a way. Or even if they're noticing, they don't react or change their behavior. So that's I think something which has happened to me recently, which I'm very happy about. That now I can move around, in a situation in such a subtle manner that I'm able to capture the essence without disturbing anything, any element in that.
So, and that is when you get the most honest reflection of whatever you're seeking.
True.
One compliment you may have got often enough, your photographs look like paintings. How do you respond to that? And whether you take it as a compliment or on the contrary?
No, I feel very okay with it because because of the lack of nomenclatures, for that. Because people were not really used to looking the kind of photography which I was doing. So and some of them had a painting in the background, in fact. So and the photograph was for them basically either a fashion photograph, or a wedding photograph, or somebody's portrait, or a documentary photograph. But people had not seen, at least in this region or in India, some parts of India, that kind of work which was actually conceptualized and then implemented and executed. So for them, it was. There's hardly any difference between a painting and a photograph, honestly. Any image, any work of art is a work of art. How you do it, that's irrelevant. If that work is able to communicate something, how strongly it does, how passionately one does it, that depends upon one's own talent and God's grace. Otherwise, it's a work of art. But it's the lack of knowledge, lack of exposure, lack of experience to the viewer when they use these kind of words. But it's fine, because you don't expect everybody to be that informed. We are lucky, we are fortunate, we go to biennales, triennales, keep traveling to the world museum all the time, keep engaging with people, but ordinary people don't do that. They have so many other things to do. We are professionals. We are cultural practitioners. That's our job. So if they use this kind of a word, one must appreciate it.
And now I come to the question on digital photography. It has become so big now. Everyone, thanks to the mobile phone, is a photographer. Has that helped the cause of photography as an art form, or has it adversely impacted it?
No. See, any development, any new scientific achievement in any form, when television came, people were saying films will finish. It didn't. So it is basically it's a facility which has been provided to a photographer. with the invention of digital photography. So everybody, it's available to everybody. Those who are talented, those who are not talented. So it's up to the photographer, up to the artist, how he or she deals with it. And film is still available if you want to. Like Diwan Singh still uses film. There are many others are coming back. In fact, the cameras which were being treated as junk, those film cameras, have become now so expensive. People are setting up dark rooms again. Even I might do it later.
I was going to ask.
Although it's a very tedious job, which is a very tiring job. Because now everything you can do on a computer on a table. There you have to struggle into the dark room, and the dark room that time were not so kind of well equipped. They were not air conditioned. The fumes of the chemicals, and you have to in the dark. You have to develop, wash, then dry, then so. All those things have gone away. The digital printing, digital machines bring out a picture. Like earlier times, it was now I make pictures say about 5 feet by 10 feet. It's very easy. You print on the printer. At that time, the maximum size I used to print was 30 by 40 inches. Even that time was considered to be very large. But that took a toll on your back, on your mind, on your eyes, and your hands into chemicals. So, but if you take the life of a sculptor, how difficult a medium it is. So those difficulties and things are part of profession. Any profession, you have to deal with it. But of course, digital has made things easier.
You also capture life, and then you talk about existential questions about life after in your works, Shores of the Unknown.
Shores of the Unknown.
So how do you think life and death are two sides of the same coin? How do you navigate the space between the two? There are these real people, somebody sweeping on the floor, and then you're talking of death, and as you were saying, you were going for this bhog ceremony, and suddenly you see a different kind of life somewhere. So
that's I think as human beings we learn to live with all kinds of adversities, all kinds of various activities. But sometimes it's sadness, sometimes it's depressing, sometimes it's very joyous. But as an artist, when you are looking at life, you are looking at life as it is being celebrated, as a kind of celebration which is going on. But within the celebration, there are ups and downs, there are inequalities, there are those things which you have to express, that goes on. But when it comes to life and death kind of this thing, death is inevitable, we all know it. The moment we become aware of it, it instills a kind of a fear within us. That series, for instance, or those kind of works are precisely for that reason, that to remind us we are all in a way, mortal. And the way we treat others, the way we treat ourselves, as if I am going to live forever and ever, and to put a little break, to kind of concentrate, think, contemplate that there are other people who are like you. They may be poor, they may be less privileged, but they are like you. And you also have to go. Don't think that maybe you become poor tomorrow. You never know. And you have a poor relative. And maybe you have come from that kind of a background. So if you look at life with compassion and empathy and understanding, and if you are aware of that, then of course you are aware of death also. So that death is, it chastens you. It brings you back to reality. That you cannot behave the way you do. Sometimes we do. We become arrogant. We become, we think we're overconfident. So that's what it is all about.
We give ourselves too much credit.
Yeah, we think I'm gifted. I'm talented. I have done it. I have created this. No, we keep doing that. My creation. It's not creation. It's production. It's a continuity of a creation which is set up by the universe somewhere, with that black hole. We are all a part of that continuum. We are contributing a little bit. Like somebody else did something else,
Yeah.
I learned from that, I took it as an example, and I moved it a little forward. And somebody else moves it a little more forward. That's how it happens. And artists are always disruptors. You know? Because if you're a disruptor, then only you can give a new way of life to people. That life can be lived from that angle as well. Life is not only meant to be lived from this perspective only, or as some other people want you to live, that way.
Looking at your journey from this little boy from Bareta in Punjab, coming to Chandigarh, studying at Government College of Art, and finally showing the way to the city itself. How do you look at it? Are you happy with where Chandigarh should have been, what you dreamt?
Having come from a small town in Punjab and travelled all this journey is in fact a very rich experience, and I'm very thankful and grateful to all my friends and Almighty that I've been given this opportunity to learn, to interact, and to experience the kind of life which I have, and all through the world of art. And when I look at what I was doing while being responsible for the art activity in the city, it gives me pleasure and satisfaction in the sense that I was able to bring activity which was never brought to the city. The best of the minds in the country, in the world, and the best of the artistic practices. How we get respectability for artists. Like when I saw film stars and cricketers being given that kind of a celebrity status, it was in my mind that all these artists also should have that kind of big billboards and advertisements in newspapers, YouTube videos, to give a comprehensive, wholesome experience to the audience. The other part of your question was whether I'm satisfied with the kind of progress Chandigarh has made. No. It is only a little bit of salt in the big samandar. It needs many more efforts on part of all of us, of people of Chandigarh, artists of Chandigarh, art organizers, administrator, everybody. Government has to provide more funding, more buildings, and artists have to be more responsible towards others as well. They don't have to be only looking inwards and towards themselves, only about themselves. They have to become more giving, and many of them are, of course, and there should be more opportunities for them also, because artists get very limited opportunities to succeed, to show, and especially the young artists of the city who just come out of College of Art, they are blank where to go. Only a couple of them who are extremely talented, they find some places in some residencies or here and there. The others are actually searching for little small opportunities, which we started when I became the chairperson. The scholarships and fellowships, fortunately, they are still going on. The government should give space for artist studios where artists work and people come and interact with them. It becomes a makkah or a hub of art activity. Where should be some cafes and some bars and people and bookshops and some theatre happening or some musical things happening. Like some events are happening in the underpass. They can give assign one school to one theatre artist or one artist, painter or sculptor. They can work there. They can ask them, okay, in lieu of that, maybe you direct one play for us children. Teach something to our children. Activities in school, which are most important. Activities to inculcate a kind of appreciation amongst mothers, because it's the mother who actually raises a child. Bureaucrats, because bureaucrats decide a destiny. If the bureaucrats are sensitized towards art, and because they can then manipulate and maybe bring around the politicians also to share out more funds for art. So this has to be done, and public has to be demanding, like they demand for other amenities. Good healthcare, good roads, good schools. They should also demand for good art institutions.
But you were talking of opportunities to young artists. As you look back, who gave you the opportunity? How did you find your way?
Many people. many people came across, because I had friends who were, philosophers, scientists, teachers of English, poets, painters, theatre persons. So everybody in a way contributed towards my journey, and I found opportunities, of going here and there, and a lot of people, not one, and Professor Raj Jain, Viren Tanwar, Satyapal Gautam, Professor Oberoi, Kumar Vikal, a lot of people. They're part of my journey, and they contributed hugely into my becoming what I am.
And so with City Tales, we can say that Diwan is reborn. And do you now promise that we'll see more and more of the artist in you? There was a time when we were, the whole of city reporters were writing about you every now and then. Do you think we are, inching towards the similar kind of situation where you'll be surprising us again and again?
Hopefully, yes, inshallah, with God's grace, I have a lot of kind of images to share, a lot of different kinds of series. I have a huge body of work on Corbusier, on Chandigarh and other cities in the country, where Corbusier had been creating his architectural spaces, and human life, and maybe a set of conceptual artworks as well. So I will show, yes. It will be another journey into my world of art, where I share my images which I have been kind of graced with by Almighty, that he or she is still kind of very large-hearted, that keeps pouring in new ideas, and the same intensity and passion to observe life, to make images, to share with them. That has not subsided. That is still as strong and as intense as it was.
And any art project that you're dying to create?
I don't look at that dying or living. Conceptual art, there will see many conceptual ideas which keep on happening, and the world is ever changing. The world is, moving at a very dangerous, balance in human history, and you feel desperate to do something because you're not. You are a very small fry in this whole bigger scheme of things, and how can you kind of make people aware of what is going to happen if this happens, if that happens, and how humanity is suffering, how the greed of some rich countries is devastating large chunks of humanity, and making this world even more secure, more unlivable, more weapons, more chemicals, more devices, more divisiveness in society. How can human beings are human beings? They find a way to be human, to be loving, to be caring, to be happy. It's the resilience of the human beings. What other human beings who are responsible for their future, what are they doing? So how can we bring some kind of a sense into those who are in a way who decide our destiny in a way? The societies which are so-called democratic, liberal societies, they are more conservative, they are more controlling, but they do it in such a systematic, organized manner, you think it is not happening. They control, but they have fine-tuned the art of controlling people, their minds. They'll control through art, they'll control through music, they'll control through lures, many things.
So in the given...
Or power, or sheer, brute force.
So in the given scenario, what can an artist or art do?
Art is always something which can bring about some kind of a sanity into this insane world. That's the role of the artist. So artist should not look at him or herself merely as somebody who is looking or living in a small corner,
in a cocoon.
In a cocoon. Artist is responsible for showing that light to the world. Be it a musician or a poet or a painter or a filmmaker or a dancer. We are the ones, in fact, who are pampered, who are given so much of respect and love and care by society. We may or may not deserve it. And look at other people, scientists, people working in these science, PGI. Look at the doctors, the amount of service they do to humanity, the amount of service these scientists do, how much they are covered in the newspaper and media. I come as a young graduate from College of Art, do an exhibition, I have big portrait of mine flashing into all the newspapers. So we are pampered. If we are given that kind of respect, then it is our responsibility, our duty to think and ponder, why are we given that kind of a love and respect and care? Because people think that we are different people. We are not normal human beings. We are given those special gifts by the God, and those gifts are meant for finding a way to make this world more livable, more beautiful, giving a new direction to people when everything else fails, like times in Corona. So that is the time when an artist can come out with something which gives them hope. One can look forward to. One can look forward to living another beautiful, happening life.
So on that hopeful and optimistic note, we bring this conversation to an end. Thank you, Diwan, for your fruitful insights into art and your own art as well. Thank you so much.